just because you think you're good in certain subjects in school, they don't translate into practice. Practice is very different. So just because you're good at listening to people and solving problems and discussing them doesn't mean that you'll do good in family law. If you're no good as a lawyer, you will never get the work because no one wants to lose a case, right?
Right.
So even if you're very good at networking, doesn't matter. As a lawyer, you need to be well-rounded. You should be specialized, but you should be
Right.
practicing everything.
Mhm.
Not because of anything else, but because it really helps you open up your mind, and a lawyer does everything. I believe that personally, right?
Right.
There are a huge number of lawyers, although they're specialists now, that still are generalists, and they practice everything. They learned how to learn things very fast.
Hello, friends and future colleagues. Today we have a distinguished guest whose multifaceted expertise bridges not only legal domains but also continents. Joining us is a dual qualified lawyer in both Canada and India, holding an impressive LLM in common law from the prestigious Osgood Law School. With a robust background in corporate law, intellectual property, and commercial litigation, he brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to our conversation. His credentials are further highlighted by his certification as a certified information privacy professional in Canada. Our guest has a rich history of practicing before the Supreme Court of India and has carved out a niche in consumer law, arbitration, and telecommunications law. He is also the founder of Creators Legal, a consultancy dedicated to the legal needs of content creators and tech startups, reflecting his passion for social media laws, technology laws, and privacy law. We are thrilled to have him with us today to share his insights and experiences. With this, I welcome Advocate Govind Chaturvedi to the show. Welcome to the show, sir.
Hi, and wonderful to be here, Muskan. Thank you. I think this was a long time in the making for us.
Absolutely. We have been connected for a long time, and so I think that there has been a lot of development since our last conversation to today. So this is going to be very
Yes.
interesting to getting to know you again and better. So let's start the show, and we are going to discuss about why choose law. Why did you choose law?
Oh, that's very easy. I was pretty young. I was, I think, in eighth or ninth. I wanted to be a doctor initially. And then I was reading this book, How to Kill a Mockingbird, around that time. And, the character in that, particularly the protagonist's father, it is a very interesting character. And, it just, you feel a sense of responsibility that comes with doing law. And at that time, I did take the point to discuss it with my mother, and I was like, should I do it? And she was like, it's an interesting profession if you want to go in it. She told me all the highlights, the cons, the good parts, the bad parts, and I was like, I can deal with this. I have the requisite, like you said, some of us, like, have that ability to be a lawyer more than other people. We just want to be that. So it's just not that no one can be a lawyer. Everyone can be a lawyer, I believe that. But because a lawyer, you also bring your own expertise from your own personal life into it. But some people have that inclination, towards moving argument, basing facts, their critical thinking, and that just comes naturally to some people.
Right, absolutely. Just to get a few things clear about you, you are a resident of Delhi only, or because I could see like Bangalore on your LinkedIn profile also.
Yes, so currently I'm in Bangalore.
Okay.
Prior to that, I was in Delhi. I practiced in Delhi for 10 years.
Right.
Then I went to Canada for 2 years, and currently I'm in Bangalore. Well, it's not just because of the weather. The weather is definitely better here.
Right,
But
right.
it's also that, you have I had some work here, I had some friends here, just people here. And I also wanted to, try the Karnataka High Court practice here. It was an interesting place to be. So I just thought, maybe we as lawyers should have that ability, just going to another court, being able to practice there, see litigation in a different lighting, see how lawyers practice. So that kind of intrigued me. So I was just here. And of course, personal reasons I also had. So
Right. So when we are talking about your whole law career, if I may, you had I think 32nd rank when you were qualifying for law. When you were qualifying for the law examination here in India.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that too you graduated with an A grade back in Canada.
Well, first division, 60% is first division. So, that's the most we could hit. So we were like, yes. Yes, I did get my first division there, but not to say I was academically very sound. I was academically very, let's just say, I was all right. I was somewhere on the average side of law. So I would never say that I was very good in academics in school or college, but yes, I would always just let's just say breeze through, get my thing. I in the yes, if you're referring to my entrance exam, yes, I got 99 percentile in that. So
Okay.
that was yes, that was something which was very surprising. So, but yeah, it is I think a lot of people are built for different types of examinations. When you're giving examinations in colleges, it's long form, it's subjective, whereas MCQs are very objective, right? It's right or wrong. You don't have anything else. There's no marking on it. So sometimes I also believe that different students have a different inclination. I would say that, right? Because whenever I've given any of these, let's say, entrance exams, which are MCQs, I've always scored better than I would have scored in my long form or these subjective type of answers.
Okay.
So this is something, it's very individualistic, and it took me a long time to figure this out about myself, that when it came to competitive exams, there's a system to it.
That's a good motivation actually, because it really matters what kind of examination you're going for, what are the questions going to be. And even when it comes to selecting a course for you, you have selected this particular course was designed especially for people who are maybe non-Canadians, right? The Canadian
Common law.
Right. So it was designed especially for that. So when did Canada happen for you? You did your law school here in Delhi, and then afterwards you worked at 4 places, I think, and then you decided to switch to maybe Canada and study.
So I was in the Supreme Court. Initially, I wanted to, as soon as I passed out, I wanted to see if I could, how do I put it? Understand what kind of law I wanted to do. So I jumped into general lit, and that is when I practiced in the Supreme Court. I did a lot of commercial lit. I did all types of matter, whether it was property, whether it was arbitration. So just because you're good at listening to people and solving problems and discussing them, doesn't mean that you'll do good in family law also. I'm just saying, family law needs another type of see, law will accommodate anyone. If you do law, anyone can do law, any part of law, because there are so many types of law. There's property, there is family, criminal, IP. Within IP, the commercial, there's a lot of laws within it, right? Commercial law has a lot of aspects, business law as we call them, in corporation, company, corporate laws. So that's what you have to figure out once you pass out of law school. So that's what I did my initial few years. I even did sports law around then. RTI applications, all of those. These particular days, when I decided that time on intellectual property, because it interested me. It was something that was very different, and that time I was working on a family dispute matter regarding a trademark, and I got very interested and I was pulled into it. It was actually a very big matter at that time. So I was just going like, this is interesting. And when you get into it and when you catch on, you'll notice that you once start reading it, it generates an automatic interest in you. Like, I want to know more, because there's a social aspect to law always.
Right.
So your mind does get activated that, oh, this, okay, I can work around that. Let me just look into it, right? If you're a sports person, sports law will make sense to you. If you're someone who has a real estate background, that'll make more sense to you. So these things are something that came. So intellectual property, for a certain reason, just made more sense to me. Now, if you want to ask me why, I don't know, but it interested me more than anything else. And trademarks, just the branding, you could say, in a way, that branding really made sense to me. Brand protection, how does a company build itself? How do you make your own brand so well known? How do you sell yourself on the e-commerce platforms and become known? This was back in 2014, I think. It might seem like I might seem a little old saying that, but 10 years ago things were very different in terms of e-commerce and all of those, how things are sold, what products and how reviews are given. A lot of things were very different then. So I started getting interested in it. That time I went and joined an IP boutique law firm, and over there I started working, and thankfully I had some great seniors who really guided me in my profession. And that time I got interested into trademark, prosecution, opposition, and prosecution, opposition of all things, copyright, design, all of those things, even patents for that matter. And I really took an interest in that. And what I did around that time was work and study. So I had I would go to court, I would study all day, I would just build up my career and my knowledge base. And I did that for some time. Then I went on to another firm, which was where I was heading the Delhi office here in terms of litigation and IP, all types of litigation. but mostly they had IP and prosecution opposition again. And then I finally went to Ellis Dower and Co, where I was there for the last 2 years of my career, which was very interesting. I was trademark attorney there. They had a huge, that's a law firm. And when you have a law firm that's that old, it's very interesting to work there.
Right.
So,
1932, I guess, right?
Yeah, 1930.
Yeah.
Just coming back to your answer, then I was there for Ellis Dower, and I just thought, somewhere or the other, that somewhere I haven't reached my zenith, but I've come to a stage that I need to grow more academically. So that's why Canada happened. I went for my LLM, and yes, studies in Canada were very interesting. It was very fun. One of the things they did there, I was just to give you, is that they took out one of the most leading cases of their time, and they gave it to us, and they said, now find faults in it. Now that's like finding one of the most leading cases in today's time. Like you could take Keshav Bharti here,
Right.
or you can take any of the most judgments that make the most sense and our structure is based on, and then ask the students to find faults in it. You will find faults. You'll find some judicial faults here and there, right? And write a paper on it. So that really develops your brain in a critical thinking manner from a very initial stage.
Right, but
So
sorry to interrupt, but like rolling back, just like going a bit back on this particular thing that you talked about. So Canada happened because you wanted to study like academics and you wanted to learn more.
Yes.
So why not like somewhere? I'm not saying that Canada was a bad choice, but I'm saying why not somewhere in India where you can like develop once you understood that IP was something that you wanted to do. Why did you not develop more somewhere here, or you thought that Canada especially had a lot of like different markets that you could tap into, or like what was your motivation for joining some place in Canada?
Well, nothing, as there was no particular reason as such. I was applying to universities. I had gotten through some universities back in 2017, 18. I had gotten some very good universities, even got scholarships around that time.
Wow, okay.
But Canada just was something. The University of Osgood was very well respected.
Right.
It was a good college. It was old again. It was a very old college, right? And I was like, if I'm going to leave and I'm going to take a year off, might as well do it abroad, because at least you'll get to. Because in India you'll still see the same judicial system. Over there, I want to see the different judicial systems that existed there. How law is practiced there, how it's different from here. Because that, to understand that being specialized and doing one thing, like you said, right, like just staying within India would have given me that particular edge, but also opening up the mind to new things brings in more aspects of your own growth.
I think even universities, the curriculum that they design for students, I think there are 36 credits that you need for this particular university. And you have like, there are a lot of, so in colleges here, you don't get a lot of exposure to mock trials or moots that much. Like universities are not very concentrating, especially for LLMs, for these particular things. But there, I think you have moots, something called moots and mock trials, and also moots and everything. So
moots and mock trials take place in India also. They have been for the last 20-30 years. I know my seniors who have taken part in Stetsons, and I know a lot of those that they do exist, right? So that is a major culture even here. It's not just abroad, but that particular culture, that's again, I say that doesn't, like I say, a lot of things into law school don't translate into a lot of things in practice. So moot courts are good. I don't disagree with them, but moot courts, I don't know, they really prepare you for real court practice.
So let's talk about getting into Osgood's. So when you were, there is an examination called the LSAT. So people say that you need another examination, which is called the CAST, I think, to get LSAT, and then you get into the university, right? So like, what is the procedure about like getting into Osgood's and like some especially like Canadian universities when you were applying?
So Canadian universities, yes, you have to give the LSAT for the JD, which is basically their Bachelors of Law, Juris Doctorate.
Okay.
Something we have LLB here, they have Juris Doctorate. For that, they have another procedure for it. Over here, they don't have an integrated course. You do a graduation, then you do the 3 years of law, 3 to 4 years of law. So, however, I went for my LLM. So for me, it was just a statement of purpose, my CV, and basically an IELTS score. just to
Oh,
show that I know basic English. So statement of purpose is basically the most important part. It has to be a one pager which has to encapsulate your entire career, your personal point of view, how things went, and those are very hard to write. I believe they can't just be very basically written.
okay.
So you have to really, really work hard on it. Statement of purposes are hard to come by also because very few people share them. There was once a series in a magazine which I read. You can always look them up now. The statement of purpose of Harvard's, the ones who people who got into Harvard and how they did that.
Mhm.
So that particularly is something you can look at. But statement of purpose is the hardest part about that.
Right. Okay. So that one pager is supposed to encapsulate, you said, your career and your personal perspectives. What is this particular thing? Like, what is the personal perspective that you need to put in there? Something that is
So why
attractive.
did you like same question? Why did you want to do law? What motivated you to be there?
Okay.
How well are you gonna use your education? And if you come here, what do you want to do? So basically, based on that, your extracurriculars, what do you do except in law? All of those things have to, in a way, be put in. But also from a personal perspective, why did you do these things in the first place? You know.
Okay.
So it was always looking at things from a point of view of personally. What my personal growth will be if I do this particular degree. So that is what it has to have, and
Mhm.
that is it becomes a little hard to introspect, go over it, put it into words for people. But yes, that is
Okay.
what they base it upon.
Okay. How long did you work on this for? And did you like take some references or some other help from other people, like just to see if you
I
can
did take
refine
some
it a
help
bit?
from initially, yeah, from people I knew here and there, but eventually the personal statement has to come out of you.
Right. Mhm. So
So
how long did you
I
work?
didn't really have much help in that regard. And mostly I think that most of the ones that are statement of purpose, a lot of people do share or is out there, is very generic. You have to make it
Huh.
very personal.
Okay, all right. So how long did you work on yours?
I worked on, like, you can say 2 3 months, 1 or 2 months, putting everything
Okay.
into place, my IELTS exam and all of that. It takes that time. It takes that much amount of time. It
Okay.
can take longer because I remember when I applied to the initial colleges, I did basically, this was back in 2015. That time I had gotten into Fordham Law School with a scholarship and all of those things. However, I decided not to go at that time. And a few colleges here and there. Washington University was one that I had gotten
Mm.
through then. But then I just decided that maybe I should work more and build up my career more and then go for it.
Right. Do you need a 2 years experience before you get into this law school or this law program?
It's always suggested, right? You should work a little because that really adds to your CV, because
Okay.
you should have some work experience in it. Just based on right from law school, it won't. People do that, but it's
Mm.
not that easy either.
Okay, all right. So, what was your schedule like when you entered university? Like through your semesters, like what was your schedule like? How were your classes planned majorly?
Classes used to be, well, they used to be like, that you'd have 1 3 4 hour class on Thursday or a Friday. Some you
Mm.
would have on a Monday and a Wednesday. So there were one classes. There was no 9 to 5 schedule. You would have one class every day, and we had like 3 4 subjects per semester.
Mm-hmm.
So they used to be based on that. Since this was around COVID 2021, a lot of them were online.
Oh,
So
okay.
we were just
Mm.
attending these colleges online, and even
Mm.
though we were in Canada, we were just getting our classes done and everything,
Mm.
and exams were also online. That time. So we used to go on campus. I was living right next to the Osgood campus, and we would go online in person for some classes, and some classes used to be online. So that was a different aspect of everything.
Right. So, were they easy to manage because of the schedule? It was not very hectic, or was it very lenient with the classes and
So
keeping up
the
with the
schedule is
study?
not particularly hectic. It's the assignments and everything, and the classes you have to be very attentive and take notes.
Right.
But it is Osgood Law School is like has a very good reputation for just being very
Mm.
um student centric in their approach. So they do take out the time. The teachers, they're always ready to clear your doubts. You can
Mm.
anyway schedule a call, anyway sit down and discuss it.
Right.
So
Did you feel like a shift in culture when you came, like in terms of studying there as a student in India and then in Canada? Did you feel like there was a huge shift where you had to maybe like work harder to reach that level, or to make sure that you were keeping up with your assignments or keeping up with the lectures?
So no, I didn't feel that. I just felt that over there they were more interested in teaching you. Like learning is a major aspect that you need to look into, right? They are emphasizing on that. Over here, when I was there, it was a lot of stress, a lot of work, assignments. When in Amity Law School, we had seven subjects, and around I think we had seven subjects, and around those times, we had three sets of examinations, project reports, projects, all of those things. We had to just make those. Over there, they didn't do that. Over there, they gave us assignments, but it was marked on the basis of your understanding. You had to bring something unique to it every time. You couldn't just. It was not just you quoting sections and case laws. It was that okay, this was said in this law. I believe that this should be, and because in this particular case law, they said this, and this contradicts this particular case law, and more of from a public point of view, public policy point of view, this goes against it, and this case could cause a problem in the long run. For people who want to avail of that particular. How do I put it? If the public
Remedy.
wants to seek a certain remedy, right? That particular certain remedy will be this particular case law could be obstruction in it. So first, when they give you an assignment, you have to make an opinion. Is this right? Is this wrong? Right? So then you say, if this is particularly wrong, why is it wrong? Should letter of the law has been followed in this case? And if the letter of the law was it followed correctly? Or if you're against the case, then you say why it's wrong. Now, is it legally, technically wrong, or is it wrong from a public policy point of view? If it's wrong from that public policy point of view, you have to, substantiate that with reports, statistics that what this particular observation in this particular case law was wrong. This is not the case there, right? If you're saying that these many people are being killed by cars, right, and the case law says that this is a major problem, and then you look it up and you say no, that is not the case. A lot of people are not killed by cars, or accidents. They're mostly killed for jaywalking. So what is needed is a more regulation of the traffic rules, rather than making clear that these particular cars are fitted with more safety features, which the judgment probably could be about. So that is something you need to really understand and look into, and it really helps you develop a thought pattern. That particular thought pattern really helps in the growth of you becoming more like a lawyer.
This is actually very interesting because I don't think we get to work on things which are very unique and opinion related, which you have to present your opinion on something. It's mostly
nothing's stopping you. You can always make a project on that basis, answer questions on the long form based on that, and if you substantiate that with enough evidence and case laws, it's your point of view, right? Which you can put out there.
Related to the student culture, what was the strength of your class basically, and how different were people there? So what I learned from this LLM program, that people, because they have work experience before, so there might be a lot of people who either are professionals, are currently working, or maybe have stopped working for some time and they just want to go towards like academics, or people who have not worked that much also. So what was the general class strength, and how different were people there?
So there were people from all age groups, from the 20s to the 40s. Some were ex-judges from their country. Some were teachers. Some were people who were coming to practice law in Canada. Some were established lawyers in their own country. So it was an eclectic mix of people, which was just very interesting. You got to government servants were also there, by the way. So you had these particular type of people that you got to convene and talk. And there were, of course, students that came straight after the LLB in India, right? So you had a huge bunch of these people, and when you spoke to them, you had the different cultural identity. So I made a lot of friends over there from South America, China, Europe, and all of these Russia, and all of these Japan, and all of these people. When I would speak to them, I would understand how they approach that particular kind of law and how it's different. I was mostly interested in intellectual property, privacy, and all of these aspects, telecom, and that was always a great conversation to have these people who were practicing in it, or at least had an idea about their country. And then again, litigation, how litigation is practiced there, what is the power of the court, is it more, is it less?
Wow, okay. So I think it's
interesting. So yes, that definitely was another reason for me going abroad to study, was you also get a cultural education.
Right, absolutely. Also understanding different cultural education, just as you said, and also like getting a lot of people to network with, and getting access to different types of people who have different problems in their own countries. So when we are you also I think worked on some IP related like content creation when it came to university. So how was your experience like working with students there?
No, I didn't get you. Come again.
You were writing for some IP newsletter or something like that.
No, yes. So that was that was the Osgood IP intellectual property blog.
Right.
So yes, I was writing there. So we used to have bi-weekly meetings. That was
Hmm.
also very interesting because they had people from not just most of the country, but people from very science backgrounds and everybody,
Hmm.
and we just sitting down and discussing the different types of law. The America has a lot of IP judgments coming out, and so does Canada. And privacy is a major thing in Canada in terms of judgments.
Hmm.
So that was very interesting. Sitting with them, discussing how IP is evolving. So those bi-weekly meetings were very interesting in terms of just where is the law going, where we are, and what we think, and what is the culture, what are the policies in place. At that time, AI was still, let's just say in conversations, but it wasn't really coming out. So basically at that time we were discussing what the policy is going to be, what the law is going to be, which way it should go, what is the
Uh,
policy you know we believe that it should go, and all of those things. All through whatever we spoke about at that time, the government really wasn't in line with that, I would say. But it was interesting. It was definitely an interesting experience over there,
hmm.
because you get to talk to a lot of people who are very learned in their fields. They're doing very well in terms of, and
Hmm.
it also comprises of a lot of JD students. I was an LLM student, but there were a lot of JD students in there. So they
Hmm.
also had a very different point of view coming from a student perspective, coming since they had done science, and that some of them had been like, you could even say some had worked for 1 or 2 years in IT, some had been worked in medical, and then they had come to do law. So their
Okay.
particular point of view very interesting, in that we've seen this in this field, and IP should go that way. So it's very interesting. I wrote
Um,
quite a few articles for them. Yeah.
Right. So when it comes to meeting a lot of people, I think meeting people is easier than networking with them, because networking allows you to constantly keep in touch, or maybe requires you to keep sharing a few things that you are doing, expecting them to share things that they are doing, and like having some common ground basically, or keeping like some common ground. So how was networking for you? Were you already skilled in that? Were you able to like, or did you change like a little bit of your personality, or you try to learn how to network better?
So when I say networking earlier, I was saying it's just about making connections and getting and receiving advice. When it comes to running your own law firm and practicing, the only thing that matters is merit.
Hmm. Okay.
If you don't win your
Right.
cases, if you're not good at drafting, arguing, no one's gonna give you a merit. Would you
Hmm.
go to a doctor who doesn't know his particular skill? No, you won't, because he'll mess up the operation, right? You won't
Right.
ever go into surgery with a doctor, no matter how well connected they are, just
Hmm.
because he particularly, if he doesn't know how to do surgery or know the organs or know the subject inside out, you will
Hmm.
not go to that. So that
Right.
is something that you have to experience, is that, and you have to give it the time in law. Law is not easy to understand. It'll take you a few years just to probably you can get it in 6 months, right? If you're very intelligent, you're super genius, but it will take, like, I spent my time with it. I spent my time in understanding law, seeing the
Hmm.
nuances of it, and that's why senior is important. A
Hmm.
senior will tell you a lot of things that you'll probably take a year to learn, probably in a day. They'll
Hmm.
explain things to you in that way because they'll come from their experience. So that's why I always say that work under a senior.
Hmm.
Even if you do in a chamber law practice, or have that relationship, because they really teach you a lot in your particular practice of law. So that is very important, I believe. And for that particular reason, I always say that concentrate on your merit.
Hmm.
Concentrate on going and getting matters. There are plenty of matters. There's no dearth of matters out there for lawyers. You'll
Hmm.
get a matter here and there, right?
Hmm.
Then your job is to make sure that that matter, even if it's unwinnable, you
Hmm.
think everything is against you, and you believe in the client, that the client is right, then you make sure you win.
Right.
Whether you take the case for that or not, you just argue it and you prove your worth through that particular merit.
Hmm.
Simple and straightforward. Once you
Right.
start winning your cases, once you have that skill set, people will come. Clients will come. You will not have to go out and network.
Okay.
So that is a major difference. I understand that, oh yes, you have to market and all of those things properly. I'm sure that certain law firms and everyone does that. But if you look at it, most lawyers don't.
Hmm.
You know of them, right? There are people lining up to go and ask them for a particular that, could you take my matter? And, and many times lawyers refuse. They have that luxury as we do in our subject. Like many times I do get lawyer. And if I don't think the client is right, I refuse. There was recently a social media client that last week, that particular, but not a client, definitely a person came to me last week, and they were in a lot of problems in social media, right? One of the video gone viral. So I was like, I don't want to represent you. They had come through someone and everything, and they wanted, because I was doing social media laws and everything, and I didn't think that was proper. So I was like, I'm not going to represent you. And you have that particular perspective to say no, but only after you're good at your subject.
Right.
And that's what I said now. Doing something in like right now I'm working on prevention, money laundering, income tax, basic defamation, civil suits. I'm doing those things
as well.
Right? Yes. So it's basically you have to first start off from somewhere, give it that time, and then if you don't have merit, no matter how much you network, it's not going to work out.
Right. And any particular skill that you developed in yourself to just like get better at this profession?
I developed memory.
Okay.
My memory was pretty interestingly apt in terms of understanding what was written on what page. So when you're in front of court, you remember it, and the court asks you, it's on page 138 running. You open it. Is that written in that document? Yes, it is. It is something that's all over here, and that is something I thought I was good at generally, and I built upon it. But the fact is, again, any skill set you have, build up on it before you acquire a new one, is always I say. So I was always, I think, generally good with memory, so I built up on it.
Okay, so an LLM does not directly, getting an LLM does not directly convert into like practicing, or so how does that work? So once you get your LLM, like what is the procedure?
For what?
For practicing in Canada.
Oh, okay, yeah. So the basic procedure I'll tell you is basically you give your NCA exams. Basically, you have to send your law degree to NCA. Then they'll tell you what all subjects you need to teach. Some people get 5, some people get 6, some people get 7. I got 6.
Okay.
So they also see which part, and some of my friends got 7.
Okay.
So they also see what you scored less in your law school. Okay. So if you've scored less in a certain subject, they'll give it to you again.
Okay.
So that particular reason, it is kind of, make sure you get good scores in law school. And so I basically got 6 subjects. And what I did was, when I did the common law LLM, they covered a lot of my subjects. Right. And based on that, it just gives you a free pass. Like, you don't have to give the exam separately. So many people give the exam separately. They do the LLM also. And they choose other subjects. Like in my last sem, I chose IP transactions and international arbitration.
Okay.
I chose to give one of the exams in person, which was, TOTS. And you can give that NCA. That's completely virtual. You can give it from your home.
Right. So the NCA gives you an exam to again clear up.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. And then after that, like, do you have to like practice?
Then after that, you get a certificate of qualification saying that your law degree is valid in Canada. Basically, now the law you did in your country plus this COQ, certificate of qualification, you're valid to be a lawyer. Then you go to the LSO, you register with the LSO. There are 2 parts to it. And then after that, you have to give the bar exam of the jurisdiction you want to try, you want to practice in. Now, some of them have exams, some just have courses where you just do a 6-month course. Like Alberta, I think, has a 6-month course. You just do that. And then you also do an articleship, or you seek an exemption if you work for more than 10 months in a common law country. So if you work for more than 10 months, you can just apply to give an exemption. And there's also an abridgment where you work for 4 months and you use the rest of your experience to overcome it. So these 3 things eventually, and once you clear the bar exam, then you're called to the bar. Once you're called to the bar, then you become a lawyer.
Okay, all right. So how long did you, after getting that the particular certification or the practice to work there, so how long did you work there, or do you like keep going back and forth? So what is your schedule right now? Do you keep going back and forth?
So I've never worked as a lawyer because I was still giving my bar exams, and when I qualified my bar exams, I basically came back here because I was there for 2 years. I was homesick, but also that just the bar exams and everything. After I cleared them, I was always working as a legal assistant or a student, because you can't call yourself a lawyer there,
Right.
and you also need a valid work permit, to
Mm.
give the exams, practice there, and everything. So those things I had sorted out my beginning, because you also have to understand, when you go there, there'll be an added expense and a requirement of your immigration status. Right.
Right.
So you need to have either a work permit, or you need to have PR, permanent
Mhm.
residency, and all of those things. So I had those things. Like I had my particular immigration status sorted out. But beyond that, it was just that I worked there mostly as a student, assisting
Mhm.
other lawyers in their practice.
Mhm.
So there were a lot of cases I did work on over there, and just drafted and all of the well, not drafting, just assisting in terms of legal assistance that I could
Mhm.
provide.
So, like right now, what is your schedule like? So, when you work,
So
and
my
you.
schedule is like I'm mostly consulting with people since my privacy IP expertise.
Mhm.
So mostly I just get these particular projects and I work on them. Now whether that's research, whether that's working on something else, and since I have, like I said, if I have a good track record in IP, people
Mhm.
trust me with new other types of matters
Mhm.
also. So I
Right.
also do those matters for them. And the schedule is very simple. You get up, you work, of course you exercise and all of those things because that's important. Then you work for the rest of the day. Then I also take out 1 or 2 hours to do something I like, which is I like reading about sciences. So one
Oh,
of the things is right now I'm doing psychology, I'm reading about biology, just studying those things. So I'm taking courses on that. So I'm just
wow.
studying
Okay.
online courses, yeah, because I think your education never really stops. You have
Mhm.
these negotiation contracts and everything. All of those things really need to be
What is
go
surprising is
hand in
that.
hand.
Right, but what is
Yeah,
surprising is that you said that you were not a very good student or you didn't like studying that much when back in school
yeah,
or in college that
yeah.
much. But then you chose academia, out of like when you were working, you chose academia, and then now still you're choosing that every single day. That's crazy.
Yeah, the point is that you should never, like, I really believe your education never really stops once you get into law, because law, a lot of the parts, like I said, there are different facets to law. So
Mm-hmm.
if you look at it, that we have patent lawyers now, we have engineers who have done law. IIT Kharagpur gives a law degree,
Ah.
right? So that is just specialized around patent lawyers. They are engineers who have become into law and are practicing law now,
Mm-hmm.
and they just do that particular type of patent drafting, patent searches, and all of those things. You have a lot of specialized lawyers now and everything. So this particular thing, like I through that procedure, like I said, initially in years I was just studying, working, studying, working, studying, working.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There was nothing else I would do. You're probably not meeting friends that often. You're probably not going out that often. That's true. It's just a part of law. Not to say I never went out. You went out, right? You went out once in a while, or you definitely went out with your law firms where you were working with the lawyers you were working with. But yes, for a decent amount of time, yes, it does require that time. And once you put in that time, things become subconscious. So you do get that luxury. I would say it's luxury to understand that now I can do this and I can do this, and this is what requires this much amount of my time. This is now. But in terms of even that extra time you're spending, you're spending that to learn something. You're not lounging. So, like I said, the other things I do are also to study something new. They're not just doing the exact, just sitting there and going like, oh, I'm not doing anything. No,
So
that never
no
happens.
Netflix for you in general.
No, I do watch Netflix. I do watch Netflix and all the series, because I've
Mhm.
always been a big movie fan. In fact,
Mhm.
one of my seniors I used to write movie reviews for, legal movie reviews. We
Really?
used to do that. Yeah, yeah. Just
Where
look
can
look
I
at
access them?
this will be Indian case laws, Alochak. Look it up. So we did
Okay.
write a lot of reviews from a legal point of view. So if this is a particular movie, this is the case law, this is the law they've discussed in this. How right is it? How wrong is it? Does this really happen in real life? And then you put the case
Okay.
laws in the sections there, and you say, okay, so this movie discussed this law like this. Was it on point or not? No, it was not on point. It was on point. So we look through a lot of movies, and
Um,
and a lot of those movies we used to legally review and put. So I was always a movie fan. So that's kind of hard to get out of because I was
right.
like not just into that. I was all types of movies, right?
Mm.
Whether it's European, the art house movies, a new type of movies, all of those. So I always used to follow them. So that is something I always make out time for. So that's something you don't have. So other than that, but yeah, that
Okay, so let's talk about Creators Legal, because I wanted to really compliment you about how beautiful the website is. It's very friendly, it's very easy to use also, and very attractive. What is Creators Legal? Please tell us, tell our audience here. And so, when did you start it, and what was the whole process of starting something like this?
Well, Creators Legal, it was around COVID that, everything was kind of shutting down and everything. And I was just like that time reading about how much influencers are charging, and I was like, this does not make sense. $1 million for one post. I was like, that is not feasible, right? But then when you put into the economics of it, you see if one person puts a post, the likes and comments and everything on it, right, generates that much revenue for the brand.
Right.
So that is something that always gives you a lot of interest. And I was like, this is interesting. And when I started looking through it, and I understood that social media in itself, there are certain rules and regulations, they have terms and conditions, they have certain things that, like we have the IT Act here to look into certain things, but there's no particular policy or framework for creators.
True.
For content creators, there are none of these things. So this particular thing is something I wanted to particularly put out there, right? And since I was working in IP and privacy and all of these things, I was like, this makes sense. So I reached out and I started talking to creators. I had a lot of friends who were basically into all of those things, content creation, all of these interesting things, and that time they were still very safe. They weren't getting that much into trouble as they are now, right? In fact, at that time, I did point out to a lot of creators, anything you upload according to the terms and conditions of the social media websites, they take the license to use it as they want, so that, of course, in a judgment in France was eventually overturned. Even in Canada, this was looked into, that these are adhesion contracts. So adhesion contracts meaning that you have no choice but to enter into them, right? So because of that particular thing, this causes problems for creators, and the monetary benefit they are supposed to get out of it doesn't become that much, right? Because this is definitely a contravention of your IP and your privacy. So when I looked into it, I started speaking to people started coming from advice. There's a lot of criminal angles also, right? Because a lot of these pages on Instagram or something will sometimes use a girl's photograph, right, without her consent, and just put it on their own particular page. So there was definitely a clear criminal angle to it. There was a privacy IP angle, because how are these people protecting themselves? This was 2020. So I always, I had a lot of creators who I knew, and I was telling them, trademark your handles, because tomorrow your handle could go, your Instagram handle could go, your particular page could go, and start trademarking these particular things. And as if you go back now, and I gave a lot of webinars then. If you look at those webinars, they're somewhat relevant today, because social media has moved at such a speed in the last 4 years, right? So that time I was just keeping up and putting out all the latest cases that were coming out of social media, and I was uploading it, and I was telling people that how they can safeguard themselves, how they cannot safeguard themselves, what they should do, because the contracts you enter into, you give a lot of your content away to these companies.
Exactly.
The IP, if this is being infringed, if someone takes your video and is putting it on their channel, so they get the particular traffic and they can make money from the social media. How do you protect it? Even in terms of the social media platforms, they were not great in terms of redressing the appeals of the creators, right? They had to put more efforts in, I believe, and they have since then. They put an appeal process and everything into place. So those particular things were something that were a problem then. And I came out with content, Creators Legal then. I, of course, I had a lot of people who were making their own channels and everything, and coming to me, whenever they wanted advice, and I was speaking to them. I was speaking to some creators here and there. So that was just, eventually it just became a platform educating people about what they should and what they should not do about, and if there's a content creator and they need some recourse. That was my point, that I kind of made my entire point of view in that how I can keep increasing this and how I can make it better, how I can make the rights of the creators, more airtight compared to other places. So we would just update that page very often. We haven't been able to do it that often now, because I got sidetracked in all of those things. But yes, I still try and put out some news out there, something new. We also had a lot of webinars under that, to educate people. The point was just for the creators legal was mostly meant to educate people on social media, right? And at that time, I think we were kind of successful that people started noticing, right? They were like, oh, this is interesting, and so that was the part that I was more concerned about, was the educational part of it, that people know. And the thing is that there were cases like, if there was you put out a status out there which was in certain way inflammatory and you liked it, you could be sent to jail if you liked it, right? If you had a like on it, you would be sent to jail, right? So it was also not just for the creators but for us in general as people to understand what we can do, because social media is a new space. You don't want to be getting into trouble now, and people are getting into trouble of the videos they're putting up and everything, and whatever they say, sometimes people who don't even have that many followers, they just go ahead and they put something online and they end up in jail.
Right.
So it's what you can say, what you cannot say, what you can and what you cannot do, was also not just for creators, it was also for all normal people also. It's an educational platform that I wanted to keep out there.
Actually,
so
it's
a
very good platform though. I really enjoyed
Yeah.
the website. I enjoyed the Instagram that I checked out. So I will leave all of these like in the links in the description of the video. If
We are most active on LinkedIn there, so mostly keeping it there. So just getting more and more people, I have to put out more content over there on LinkedIn. Yes.
Right. Okay. All right. Is there any last advice that you would like to give people here? Something that I observed from your side, from you, and having this conversation with you, was that you have a very like active personality where you want to like try new things, you want to get into new things, and you enjoy experimenting in other things, and you don't like to stay at one place. Like you just like to explore more and do more, and always keep yourself on your feet. So is there anything else that maybe we can get from you, like some piece of advice, or other law students or law graduates and people who are already working?
So it's not that I don't like staying at the one place or like not doing the same thing, because then I wouldn't be in law, right? I like that stability and that work. And the point is that eventually you have to understand, this is just to everyone, right? Get out, when you get out of law school, don't make up your mind about any particular field. Do general lit. Law school education and actual practice is very different. Practice wherever you can, preferably the Supreme Court, because eventually you might come back or not there. Take your time in understanding it, then find a specialty, specialize in it, and then work on it, spend your time on it, get the merits in it, be good at it, right? Because I keep saying it, because it's also, once you become good at it, you have to put in a lot of effort to stay good at it, right? So you have to keep updating yourself, keep understanding what's going on, keep working on new projects in that particular field. But yes, as lawyers, if you ever feel like that more than that, you also want to specialize and be generalist and know all types of laws, it is good for you, right? There's no point being a lawyer and just knowing one particular kind of law, like I just do contracts or I just do IP, right? You should also be able to advise someone if they want something on criminal law, right? On family law, you should be able to have that. So that's my only advice. And yeah, enjoy yourselves. Law is fun. It has place for everyone. Don't get dreary in it. Enjoy it.
Right. All right. Thank you so much for coming on the show, sir. I hope you enjoyed. And
it's my pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the viewers for watching throughout the video. We will see you on the next episode, and thank you so much for joining in.